Oh, it's a gentle journey.
Here we are, Gordon Dundas.
Mr. Dallas.
Episode 7, Series 3. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah. For those listening and even watching on YouTube, we're maybe a day or two over our usual recurrence of the podcast. But yeah, Easter holidays get in the way, Gordon. Rolling my eggs and
eating too much chocolate.
Far too much chocolate.
Yeah.
Taking the Renault Captur out for a drive in the country, you know.
Oh, he loves a Renault Captur. We should get a sponsorship from Renault. We mentioned it so much.
We really should. And I just talked to you a minute ago about the car wash I went through with Infinity Foam. But I've got no time to talk about this. But these are the wonderful things I got up to on holiday.
Well, you can't do much else. But we are opening up, and that is exciting. And we'll just touch on that when we come on to the news.
And can I just say, we did a tasting into the Inverurie whiskey shop. You were watching.
I was.
And Susan, one of our listeners on the podcast, contacted us through the Facebook Live doing that tasting into Inverurie. So, thank you very much.
Hi, Susan.
Yes, with a couple of people saying that Whiskey Unscripted was pretty good during that tasting.
Pretty good. There's a recommendation if you could ever have one. No, I mean, I met a couple of people as well who listened to it, and they said it's great. We love it, and please keep doing it. So we fully intend to do that.
If you go to the social media feeds, just today, and this is now Monday the 19th of April, I posted our 10,000 download badge we get from our podcast provider. Boom! 10,000 downloads.
Unbelievable. And as you quite rightly said in the post, maybe that's time for us to, what is it you said? Go and break off and do our own thing.
Join a super league of podcasters.
Yeah.
There's no relegation, no promotion. We just get together big and we just make millions. That's
but you, and Peter Crouch.
That's exactly
it. I don't know who else does good podcasts, but yes.
Yeah. So that's 10,000 downloads, 20,000 ears. That's 100,000 fingers.
That is 100,000
manipulated their devices to get to
Absolutely.
Whiskey Unscripted. So that's our personal news, Gordon. In episode 7, like every episode, I tasked you with looking at some of the news stories that have come across your desk.
Yeah, I mean, the big news story, I think, really, in the world of whiskey in the last week or so has been the removal, I think, of the word non-chill filtered from Glendronach, which is has hit their fans very hard, and I think more in trepidation of what it may mean longer term. I don't know. I mean, I think Glendronach's a great whiskey brand for sure. Great people that work there as well. I mean, I would hope that the whiskey quality will still remain the same, but they produce great whiskey, and they've got good people there as well. So I'm sure it's not as much of an issue as some people say it will be. But quite a big news story, and has ruffled the fans of the Dronach.
Fans of the it must be a name for them, Dronachians or whatever. But could you just run through the chill filter for those maybe listening that aren't so familiar with the chill filtering process?
Yeah, well, very simply, chill filtering is done for whiskies really that are bottled between 40 and 46% generally. So let's be up front, Glengoyne, we chill filter some of our whiskies. Anything at 43, so our 18-year-old, for example, chill filtered, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything, and it doesn't affect the taste. It doesn't affect. It's really to take out haziness that you may see if you added ice to a whiskey or something like that. So you very simply chill the whiskey right down just before you bottle it, and it takes out some of those fatty acids and those types of things that may cause a bit of clouding. For me, historically, I don't think it's such a big thing, but any whiskies above 46%, like our Legacy Series Chapter 2 or our even our Tamdhu 15 and things like that are all non-chill filter. They don't need to be at 46.
Right.
That's simply all it means. But
they're also I'm not the chill filtration expert, but there's various degrees of chill filtration. If you're into the real geekiness of it all, you can chill filter to minus levels, I believe, but we're almost at ambient temperature, just a little bit above. But I don't know how that really affects the process. You're maybe taking out less of these long chain fatty acids if you're at a higher temperature of chill filtration.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only thing it really affects, if it affects anything, is mouthfeel. Which, if there's enough, for me, if you've got enough interaction, good cast, things like that, you're not really going to notice it, in my view. But yeah, it's a big thing for some people. A bit like natural color for some people is really important. And that's, for example, we Glendronach does natural color, so do we at Glengoyne and Tamdhu. So yeah, I mean, it's like everything in life. People may want to just buy whiskies that are non-chill filtered. That's your decision. It's like everything, it's up to them. So
I tell you what, Glendronach, I believe I'm looking back to those halcyon days when we used to drink in a bar, Gordon. And I think Ben Nevis, Glasgow, Dumbarton Road, I think. No, it's not Dumbarton Road, it's Argyll Street, isn't it? The Ben Nevis, wonderful bar. I think I had a 15 Glendronach as one of my last whiskies out in the real world.
Lovely whiskey.
It's a lovely whiskey.
Yeah, lovely whiskey. And one of those sherry cask only whiskies predominantly, not exclusively, but they use PX as well. Yeah, really, 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 really great whiskey. So let's hope it continues.
Gordon, I've got another news story that I've just sort of threw out there. We've talked about this before, but here's another. This was in the Financial Times just 3 days ago, which was Friday the 16th of April 2021. So it's a big article in the FT, and it was referring to a Brian Davis, LA-based distiller, co-founder of the Lost Spirits Distillery. He's now the highest profile distiller of whiskey and rum to come out and embrace this rapid maturation technology. Mm-hmm. And it went on and on into the wheres and wherefores of it all, but it does not seem to be going away. These guys think they can mature whiskey in a week that takes 10, 15, 20 years, and it's bright light to break down the wood inside. I know it's something the Scotch whiskey industry are not that keen on, but here is Ian Buxton. He is brought into the quote, and he was saying the logic tells you that in 6 days, a Star Trek style reactor cannot possibly deliver the flavours of traditional aging. Your nose and palate, this was with rum, will tell you otherwise. He goes on about Scotch whiskey. He says, obviously, we're the sworn enemy of rapid aging, but he says Scotch whiskey need to wake up and smell the coffee. It faces competition, not just from these high-tech upstarts, but from a growing international distilling culture that is creating high-quality whiskey from Finland to Taiwan. And even, he goes on to say that Scotch whiskey being aged for 3 years is only 100 years old. And a lot of people are entrenched into that way of thinking. He says, let the market decide. It goes on and on, but it was a very interesting article. We can't just dismiss these straight away.
No. I mean, I think, look, it's interesting, for sure. It's interesting. I remain to be convinced, but look, I think you have to wait for good things personally. And it's if you're a new distiller, I could see why you'd be interested in things like this. But if you're an established distiller, you've got your profiles, you've got your stock, you've got everything should be lined up for you to continue to produce as good stuff as you can do. But look, if you could, give me some samples, I'll give it a try, but I remain to be convinced.
Yeah, I'm the absolutely same. Remain to be convinced, but it was an interesting one. Another thing that caught my eye as well was the Johnny Walker experience that's opening in Edinburgh this year. Released a couple of mock-ups of what the shop will look like. It's 8 levels, this experience in Princes Street, and the ground level will be a floor, the shop floor. But what I like about it, because I'm here in my capacity as an experiential ambassador, they're talking about experiences, they're talking about storytelling, they're talking about immersivity in the store, and so it's quite exciting.
Yeah, they've got the space to do it. There's a lot of history in that brand. There's a lot of things you can dive into in terms of the whiskey, how much depth you want to go into what whiskies are and where do they come from. there's a lot of history and experience that it's not just a blend in a bottle. It's all the things, all the components from all of those factors come into that. One thing's for sure though, Gordon, when you get into that shop, you'll need to keep walking.
That's right, striding. Absolutely. But it just says to me that what a destination Edinburgh will be in the next year or two if you are into your spirits. Because not only do we have our friends at the Scottish Whisky Experience, and Susan Morrison, the chief exec, has been on this show, but you'll have the Johnny Walker Experience in Princes Street and Edinburgh Gin, gin close to our hearts. I know this is a whisky podcast,
yeah.
but if you like the clear stuff, that'll be a wonder. It is a wonderful place, and there should be another distillery, Edinburgh Gin style, in a year or two. So what a place!
Absolutely.
What a day you'd have doing all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And then you could actually come back to the better city, Glasgow, and go to Glengoyne.
Yes, absolutely. Evening, poof. That's right.
Absolutely. But no, great. Look, great to hear. And obviously, with things in the UK going pretty good at the moment, things supposedly opening up in Scotland next week. Although, so I think distillery tours at Glengoyne may be starting on Monday, the 26th. So. Keep an eye on the website and other
keep an eye on the website, Gordon. Just on that, it's March 17th. March 17th.
May the 17th. May the 17th.
This is now April. Yes, so we're not time traveling. I've not been drinking that much. So May the 17th is the official start date.
All right.
I think they could have gone that early, but I just wanted to get everything. Make sure this is the real deal this time.
Yeah. No, and of course, the ensuring everybody is safe is at the most paramount for us. So we're excited. I know the team are very excited because they're professionals and do it so well. And I hope people from May the 17th will be back at Glengoyne for that wonderful experience that we deliver.
And Gordon, just in the last part of the news, just before that, there's a small detail of the online Speyside Festival, which will be happening, in 2 weeks?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, the online Speyside Festival is happening. I think it's not long now. I think it's next weekend, the weekend after next. So, that's great. And we're doing a couple of Tamdhu events there, launching some new products, and a whole lot of other great stuff. So have a look on the Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival website. Virtual event, obviously, but it'll be really good and interactive and fun. So we look forward to seeing you at that.
Great. Gordon, before we carry on, what are you tasting?
I'm drinking the Glengoyne 21.
What? I'm drinking the Glengoyne 21.
Are you?
Why on earth are we doing this?
Well, I mean, there's could have something to do with our guest for the day.
Yes.
Look, this really interesting bit of story, which I don't want to give too much away. We have a gentleman from Wisconsin who I interviewed last week, who had never had a drink in 50 years. He's 50 years old, never had a drink. He was going to come to Glengoyne, and we were going to give him his first ever drink of any sort, and it was going to be a Glengoyne. Obviously, COVID put paid to that, and through the wonderful whiskey community that is online, and it's an incredible community of people. Aquavite, which is Roy Duff, who's based in Glasgow, who I've been on his show. He's a great advocate for whiskey, independent, vehemently independent, and critical when he needs to be, supportive when he needs to be. Roy's got a good affinity with Glengoyne, so we were going to get Dave over to Glengoyne. However, COVID put paid to it. So this community, along with Roy and the Whiskey Tribe in the US, which is an amazing, again, another brilliant community of people, managed to get Dave to, and they did it all online. So if you watch and listen to there's a video you can watch, which we'll post on the Whiskey Tribe, but there's a reason why we're drinking Glengoyne 21, and you'll see that from the interview, and we will share you the link to the video as well, which is just great, that was done by the Whiskey Tribe. So it's a great story. If you've nobody's ever had a drink in his life, and the first drink he has is a whiskey, it's a great story. So let's listen to Dave.
Okay.
So I'm here with Dave Cummings. Dave, it's quite an interesting story. Your sort of whiskey story is a very interesting story. Your Glengoyne story is a very interesting story. But look, really would love to hear about your sort of how you got to this point, which is such a unique story.
Yeah, well, if people don't know, I never had a drink in my life for 50 years, and the story we're talking about is how that came to an end. But the question that I'm always asked, and um, we answered this a bit in the Whiskey Tribe video there, but it was really starting off as in a family that didn't drink. When you're a child, the momentum is set. If your folks don't drink, then most likely you don't, and you don't see it. So I didn't have that interaction. And there was a religious component. They didn't drink for religious reasons, and so I just did it and didn't see it. And so, like a good kid, I'm on board. Okay, I will do what the family's doing. And then we get a little older. I go out and I'm with my friends, and I notice that alcohol is not a good element in a lot of these people's houses. They were several people abusing alcohol, and I'm a odd duck. If you ask a lot of my friends, I'm odd in many ways, and I'm happy, and I've embraced my oddness. But I have a natural love and just interest in human behavior, even as a small child. So I would look at what's going around me, and I would notice the effects that drinking had on the person who was abusing alcohol and the family. And so I'm like, you know what, that I don't think I want to do that. And
Sure.
So that perpetuated it some more. And then it just kept happening. In high school, the story was my friends are all throwing up in their cars and having all these problems with alcohol. And again, being an observer of behavior and evaluating, does that sound right or not? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So again, no, I'm not going to drink. And then I'm a little stubborn as well. So when they were trying to pressure me into it, I'd be like, well, no, I don't drink. So then I've made that declaration, I don't drink, and more momentum. And I carried that with me through the Marine Corps, which, for all you Marines out there, you understand how hard that might be, trying to get through the Marine Corps without drinking. And there was a lot of difficult situations there. It's like, man, I'd kind of like to drink, but it's probably best that I don't because of my observations in the past. So it just continued like that. That I never saw any good things come out of alcohol just because of what I was experiencing. So that's pretty much why I didn't. And once you have that thing about you, and once you get like 25, you're like, what do you mean you didn't drink? So now I'm kind of like the unicorn, and I like being odd. So there it goes. So and it never really was a big religious thing for me. I wasn't making some big moral stand. It was just me evaluating, did alcohol fit in my life? And at that point, it was no.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, I know plenty of people who don't drink and never have drunk, and it's absolutely up to them. And I think the intriguing element and the bit that I think everybody, I mean, that's absolutely, the way it is. But what at the age of 50 made you go, right, I'm gonna have and why a whiskey?
Yeah, it does confuse a lot of people. So on the opposite side of that coin, when I got a little older, I started traveling to Germany, and I kept now having instances pop up where I started seeing how alcohol was actually an enhancer of life. I ran into responsible drinkers, connoisseurs. I shouldn't say drinkers. They were tasters. They were using alcohol as a means to come together to create an event. It wasn't about getting drunk, and I think that was the turning point. That's the thing that makes the whiskey community different. We're not about pounding away with the alcohol and getting drunk and stupid, right?
Absolutely.
So I started seeing these little things, and I spoke to some other, there have been dozens of these where I would go somewhere and everybody's really excited about some alcohol that they have found, and everyone's sitting around enjoying it. And I was able to take part because we're friends, but I was kind of like the guy that is watching everybody play Monopoly. They're inviting me. You want to play? I'm like, oh no, I'll just sit here and kind of watch you. I'm in it, but I'm out of it, So I kept missing these things, and and I started evaluating, well, why don't I drink? And for many years after that, it was more of, well, I'm a non-drinker, I'm that unicorn, and it was kind of a badge of honor. And people say, well, Dave, he just doesn't drink. What? Then it became a good topic. So I also had never smoked anything, I hadn't drank, so I ran into cigars. And that's a whole other story, how I made that transition. And I found them intriguing, and I started smoking cigars at around 30. So the joke is I'm kind of the Benjamin Buttons of substance enjoyment. So at 30, I started smoking cigars. And at 40, I'm like, well, why pipes are kind of cool. You got to fidget with it, and each one of these things had their element to it that was interesting. And then I got around people with cigars and pipes. Now I'm starting to get that social connection, and we're coming together over cigars. And cigars taught me generosity, where I'd have strangers hand me a $10, $20 cigar. Have you tried this here? Out of the love of cigars, they were giving a stranger something to enjoy. And when I became getting close to 50, being the Benjamin Buttons guy here, I'm like, well, what can I do at 50? And because I have a lot of interest in German cultures and things, like going to Oktoberfests and those sorts of things.
Yep.
Have a really close group of friends that go to a thing called Wurstfest in New Braunfels, Texas. Been going for about 20 years. And so I would go, and everybody'd have these beers. And again, it's like we're talking, they were uniting around drinking beer and this experience of around that. So I thought, well, heck, 50 is a moment where you can end momentum. So I had all this momentum of not drinking, half your life, hopefully, 50 years old. So what do I do? Well, I kind of like the idea of beginning to drink. Yeah. So I made that choice. It's like, okay, I think it will enhance my life, and have no reason not to, other than that momentum. Yep. So I decided to do it.
Okay. So you made the decision, and you're like, right, when I'm 50, I'm going to have a drink. What made it a Scotch?
There's something very interesting about Scotch. It's well, one, it's not a mixer. It can be, but just straight Scotch. It's the essence of alcohol. There's a history to it. It's fascinating how y'all make that liquid do what it does. It's fascinating. And of course, it's a heritage thing. I have Scottish heritage as well as German and Irish and that sort of thing. So yeah, I like it. And there's something refined about it. It's I don't know. And I had some friends who were into whiskey a bit. Okay. So I saw them. I'd go out with them before I decided to drink, and I'd see them. They'd go through the menu, like, ooh, here's this. This is an Islay. This is that, and it kind of reminded me of cigars. So I thought, well, that would be a fitting choice. If I'm going to try it, let's go for the best stuff there is. And for me, that was whiskey.
Okay, so you've decided it's going to be a Scotch because of a whole lot of reasons. You then sort of got in touch with, or started to maybe research it a little bit, and you maybe found Aquavitae Roy Duff on the internet. Would that be on YouTube? Would that be right?
Well, I actually found him through a whiskey forum, and I sent out an email, and I thought, well, why don't I just ask the community, if you were 50 and you decided you're going to have your first drink, what would you do? Right? You wouldn't go buy some cheap stuff and have your first drink in a basement by yourself, right? So what would you do? And I'd ask you, what would you do if you had that sort of thing in front of you? You've decided to do this after 50 years. What would you do? So
go there and make a big splash.
You're right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I posted in there, and I was concerned too. I wanted it to be a special sort of thing, because you only get one shot at it. Yeah. And it was suggested that Roy would be the guy who could guide me well. And now that I got to know Roy perfect person
Yeah.
to help introduce somebody to whiskey. I can't think of anybody better than Roy at Equity.
So a little bit from our side. I know Roy very well. Been on the show. It's V Pubs on a Thursday night, and he does a fantastic job. I think, and he covers a whole range of topics, and he's had a whole load of people on, and he really, really interesting evenings. If you like your whiskey, you should absolutely go and have a look at that on YouTube. And Roy contacted me and said to me, Gordon, this is your story, and I was like, of course we want to help with this this fantastic 50th birthday sort of initial alcohol celebration or something, however we want to disclose it. And so that's, we were more than happy at Glengoyne to facilitate this amazing experience for you. And so that's sort of how we got involved, because I know Roy very well. And so you were going to come over, obviously.
Yeah.
Off the back of your sort of discussions with Roy, my discussions with Roy, and you were going to come over and we were going to host you at Glengoyne, and it was going to be this wonderful, and we were very excited. And then we all know what happened.
Yes, right. Tickets purchased too, by the way. I even had paid extra for my seat, and we were ready to go. My bags were half packed. And
yeah. No, we were ready to have you. We were going to give you the tour, the whole, and of course, Dave, that is still the case. When you can come, we will host you there. But so I mean, I remember speaking to Roy about that well over a year ago. So then what happened in terms of this amazing, for those who aren't aware, there's this amazing whiskey community, that is part of what Roy does, part of what other people do, the Whiskey Tribe, who've got, and those guys, I love what they do. How did that bit then come around, which leads to the YouTube video that's out there?
Well, I just kind of got worn down. So, well, and so it was a year since I decided I was going to go, and we had a whole year of just sitting there. It's like, okay, what do I do? So I'm watching videos, I'm researching Glengoyne, and then I started watching a lot of other videos, and they would talk about a whiskey, and I'd be like, huh, that's interesting. And so then I wandered into a liquor store. I'm like, well, I could buy whiskey. I'm not drinking it, right? So I started buying whiskey, and so I'd research the bottle, I'd go find the bottle, and that whole thing was kind of fun. And then I kept watching everybody doing the smelling bit, Well, I guess smelling isn't tasting, right? So then I'd open a bottle and I'd pour a little dram and I would start smelling it, and then I'd hand it to my wife and she would drink it. So she didn't like whiskey now, but she definitely is a fan, because she had sit and watched all this stuff too. And so I would smell, she would smell, we'd talk about it, and then I bought a tasting or a smelling kit, nosing kit, I think they call it. Trying to isolate these smells. And a lot of people, when they comment on the video that was released, it's like, how could you pick out these smells as a newbie? I've been smelling for 3 months before and getting really kind of nerding out. I'm kind of a science guy, so I would combine smells. I'm like, oh yeah, that does smell like that, and so practice with that. So I'm doing all of this, waiting for the COVID to go away, right? And finally, I'm like, geez, I'm out of things to do. At the time, I had like 70 bottles of whiskey. I had some discretionary income, and I just started buying bottles. So I shifted from the other stuff I was doing and just did that. So I have this whole big collection, figuring that when I do start drinking, I would have lots to try. And if anybody came over, I like to host, I'd have something that somebody liked. So I have a whole section up there now. If somebody came to visit, I would be able to convert them to the land of whiskey, right? So finally, I got tired of waiting, and we'd go to lockdown 1, lockdown 2, lockdown 3, and I keep watching, right? So finally, I said, Roy an email. I'm like, man, I would love to do this at Glengoyne, but man, it's I'm tired of waiting, Roy.
Mm.
What could we do? And we sent some emails back and forth. And I do have, like I said, I have connections with New Braunfels. I go down there all the time.
Yeah.
And the Whiskey Tribe there is south of Austin, so it's close.
Yeah.
So Roy sent an email to the Whiskey Tribe, and they graciously said, "Oh yeah, let's do something." And within a couple weeks, we had it planned, and off I went to Texas.
Yeah. So you went down to Austin, and this is just sort of southwest of Austin, isn't it? Where the location of this amazing sort of. I've never been. What is it when you go there? Is it it's a sort of crowd-funded, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a crowd-funded just group of folks who are helping make decisions for the whiskey.
Yeah.
And they have the Wizard Academy there. So
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but I think they're showing how to do what they're teaching, and they're doing fantastic job at that. I'm all into the human behavior, like I was saying, and so I've read a few of their books. I'm like, I see what you all are doing. It's entertaining. It's a great service, and they're showing how to run a business, which is what they're teaching at the academy. And that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's real, but the crowd is deciding on what barrels and what they should do, and it's just a lot of fun. If you haven't done. Strongly suggested. Just great group of people.
And if you haven't watched any of their videos, but particularly obviously your video, it's just Whiskey Tribe on that'll be your agent, I guess, Dave.
Yes, right.
Whiskey Tribe, brilliant guys, doing great things about educating and evangelisting whatever the word is about whiskey, which is fabulous. So you went there with some of your family, is that right?
Well, friends and family.
Friends.
So all these folks who have been trying to get me to drink or have watched me for some of them decades, and they're like, man, if you're going to drink, I want to be there. Now, some couldn't, obviously, because of COVID, of course, but I did have a good group of really close dear friends there, which that's what you want when you're going to have an event like this, right? So.
Yeah, and so the guys were there with you, and they gave you, I think it was a Glenmorangie initially, Glenmorangie 10, great whiskey, Glengoyne 12, and a Lagavulin, wasn't it?
That's right, the Lagavulin 12.
And you got to nose them, obviously.
Yep.
And you decided, thankfully, that you wanted to go with the Glengoyne, but then they upped the ante a little bit, did they not?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they pulled some 21-year-old out of the air as a nice surprise for me, for sure. Yeah.
So your first alcoholic beverage in the world at the age of 50 was a Glengoyne 21.
Yes, it was.
And can I just say to everybody, if you have not seen the video, watch the video. Your reaction is priceless, is fantastic. You're just like, oh, this is amazing. And for someone who's never had alcohol at 40+% alcohol, that's quite strong, But you were like, this is a breeze.
Right. Well, there's some backstory there. All this time, everybody I talk to, I tell them, hey, I'm going to go have my first drink, and it's whiskey. They're all like, oh, you got to be careful. That stuff will punch you in the face, has this burn. And when my wife would drink it, she'd wince and she's like, oh. And I'm watching, and again, I'm observing behavior, and I'm listening to what people are telling me, and I'm making an evaluation. And to be honest, Gordon, I thought it would be 100 times more than what I got. I was braced for it I was trying to decide, well, what do you do? I thought about doing a gag and like, oh, this is terrible, forget it all, and walk off, but my wife convinced me. She's like, no, just take the drink, and whatever comes. And I'm glad she gave me that advice. So when I took the sip, I was expecting the big alcohol thing. So I was braced for it, and I was going to try for flavors. And I was so pleasantly surprised by this nice stream of just wonderful sweetness, and sort of surrounded by a light pepper. And I love
Mhm.
hot food.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
happy in Louisiana. So it reminded me of like it's a different burn than like Cajun seasoning, but it
Mm,
wasn't bad at all. I mean, I actually like it, and even
mm.
now, I like the 59% stuff. I,
We've
I
got
I
plenty of that.
naturally like it.
Yeah.
So combined with me bracing for that big punch in the face that everybody was
Yeah.
telling me was coming, um, when it arrived, it was just wonderful. And that 21-year-old
Oh,
is
the
so
21 euros a
good.
beautiful, beautiful whiskey. Yeah.
Ah, so my reaction is 100% real,
Yeah.
and right after that first, that is nothing like I was prepared for.
Yeah.
So it's like when you're bracing for something awful, and it turned out to be not only just okay, but absolutely fantastic. So that
Yeah.
was my delight in it.
Yeah. 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 And from that point onwards, you know, I think you taste a few other things, the Macallan or whatever. But I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you know, great whiskies as well. So I mean, it's a wonderful video. And it's funny how it's sort of, you know, it was all going to be at Glengoyne. We would have covered it, and I mean, and then it sort of got picked up by this amazing community. And I'm so glad that you're still not currently still waiting
Oh,
to have
me
a
too.
whiskey because of COVID. That wouldn't be good. But
No.
it's an incredible story, and you know, you still got plans to come over to Scotland once this is all over, hopefully.
The moment the gates open, our ticket's still on hold there, and we're gonna come, and
Brilliant.
I'm so looking forward to it that
Yeah.
just we'll go right to Glengoyne, and
Well, we'll welcome you. We'll get Roy along. We'll celebrate with some whiskies, and you and your wife and everybody's more than welcome, and it'll be a great time. But it's just such a unique story that I wanted to touch base with you just to you know, it's you know, it's such a great story, and it's something which was captured so well on that video, really, really well.
yeah, they did a fantastic job. They edited it very well to make me look a little better than I actually was. I was dealing with a lot of emotion there,
Yeah.
and there's a couple spots in there right after we're about ready to break. Can't remember the time stamp, but there's a number. They did their little
Oh, their
thing,
advert. Yeah, they're bit.
right?
Yeah.
And Roy's there with the computer. We're about ready to go outside, and you can see a look on my face where reality was hitting me, that 50 years was coming to an end. I kind of looked down, I licked my lips, and I'm like, here we go. And it was like a punch. It's like it just got real at that moment.
Yeah.
So that was it's an indescribable kind of a thing. It may be like a wedding, maybe, but it's
Yeah.
Something you can't
It's amazing.
redo,
No, no.
obviously. So they did such a good job
they
of
did.
making it
They did.
special and fun for folks, and I hope everybody's enjoyed watching it. It's 100% legit, and
Yeah, yeah.
I've had a lot of people like, "Oh, no, it's 100% legit."
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like, you know, from our perspective, we're very glad you know, we can't wait to welcome you to Glengoyne and do it properly and have you there at the distillery. And we're very glad you're up and drinking whiskey. So since then, what are your standout whiskies? Obviously Glengoyne, but there must be a few others. There's other people that make good whiskey as well.
There's some fabulous stuff out there, and
Yeah, there is.
and other than a bottle of some limoncello I tried, I've liked about everything that I've tried. I don't know if everybody remembers the Life cereal commercial. Hey, give it to Mikey. He hates everything. So people have been trying to find stuff that I won't like, and I'll try it. I'll be like, oh no, that's good. They're like, hey, right?
I'll tell you some you won't like. Bud Light.
Yeah, well, yeah, beer. Beers, you know, I'm not going to be a beer guy. I
Okay.
found some really good dark German beer I really like,
Yeah.
but it's kind of too filling, and I don't know. I'm a whiskey guy.
Quite bloated, doesn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've tried all sorts of different liquors, but with whiskey, I'm on board with Team Isla, all of them. I love that smoky, peaty stuff.
Do you like the really strong ones? Do you like the
Um, yeah, some Lefroy stuff is
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
favorite. They
Nice.
have a it's like a wine cask one. I forget the name of it. But the ones that I've really liked while sitting around a campfire, you're almost kind of like
Yeah, yeah,
hugging the Glencairn was Lagavulin and Colila, however you
yeah.
pronounce it.
Yeah, yeah, very good, very good.
Eh,
Yeah, yeah. I used to work for a couple of. I used to work for Lefroy, so
mm,
it's a great brand, and there's they're great with the best thing about single malt, and I know that Glengoyne is a whiskey it's all about how you feel and who you're with and what you want to drink, and
right.
Glengoyne, non-peated has its sort of style. You have the peatage, you have the high, just such a variety
Yeah.
of tastes, and that's the best. What about
And
some bourbon? Have you tried some bourbon?
I have the Ana Lucia distillery makes a. I think it's. See, now I'm showing my ignorance, right? Even though I've been studying, it's like what's the name, and I'm mispronouncing stuff. But again, I found all kinds of stuff that
Yeah, well,
I really like. But it does come back to Scotch single malt whiskey for me. I don't know if that's
yeah,
some
yeah,
mental thing or whatever, but there is nothing better. If I had my choice, it'll be a single malt Scotch of some sort. And to your point, depending on am I sitting around a campfire or
exactly. Yeah.
whatever it is, and
I call the 21-year-old the epitome of a celebration after dinner dram. It's
oh,
that after dinner whiskey that you're just like, but if you're around a campfire after a long day hiking, a peated whiskey is exactly what you want, and that's the way life is, and that's why whiskey is. And you'll find this now. You'll find that whiskey helps. It's all about memories. It's all about occasions and things from now on. You'll notice this, and people always say to me, I remember drinking Glengoyne 15, 20 years ago, and I'm like, I bet you did, and I bet you were with some friends, and I bet you the whole occasion was wonderful, and you're right, it was, and that fitted into that sort of narrative, and that's where whiskey's fantastic.
yeah, and I'm still experimenting with how a whiskey fits into my life.
Yeah,
And obviously for me, I'm trying to be I'm a natural introvert, so I'm trying my best to reach out and connect with human beings a little more,
yeah,
even
yeah, yeah,
even more so after this COVID business.
sure,
So there's it's always going to be about connecting with others, and I'm excited to find out what you like. It's I know what I like, but
exactly.
I love when somebody's really excited about a whiskey. Hey, try this, and great, so then I get to have that moment with them. So
Yeah,
there's that side, but there's some other side I'm noticing too. Just you and your dram of whiskey and just yourself. And I do a lot of mechanicking work, and I'm rebuilding an old Harley I have out here. And
oh, lovely.
it it was interesting that I sat down and I had a dram, and um, it slowed me down, and I am more reflective.
Mhm.
Roy says that it's like pushing the pause button. It slows everything down. So I had a moment there, just looking at the old bike and thinking of all the fun that I had on it,
Yeah,
and this was inspired by whiskey. Sitting down, otherwise I'd have been in there, wrenches flying, and um, by having the dram there, I sat down and looking at the electrical diagram, and I'm sipping the whiskey, and it paused and slowed me down. So again, I'm not sure how that's gonna fit in there. I've only broke one glass so far, so somebody needs to make a good non-breakable Glencairn glass.
they're pretty good normally. I've dropped them on a tile floor and they've not broken. But yeah, no, look, just keep enjoying it, and look, we will pick this up again when we get you over to Glengoyne, and well, when you come over to Glengoyne, we can't wait to welcome you to Glengoyne. But look, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and yeah, it's an amazing story. It really is an amazing story.
Well, thank you. I'm humbled by everybody's interest in it. So if people are finding it interesting, I'm really happy about it.
Yeah,
And if you ever see me around, just come and share with what your
no,
favorite stuff is, right? And I'm so
absolutely.
looking forward. I can't even articulate how excited I am to finally um, pull up in the little drive park there and then walk across the street carefully. I hear.
Carefully, look both ways. Yeah,
Yeah.
from the
So
lowlands to the highlands, we will see you very shortly. Let's hope at Glengoyne. Dave, thank you for taking time out to chat to us. That's fantastic.
my pleasure. So.
Oh,
And
It's superb, Gordon. What a story. 50 years.
How did he wait 50 years? And can I just say, I think his initial reaction is absolutely right. Fabulous, fabulous dram, for sure.
And you must watch the original video as well on the Whiskey Tribe. That is hilarious.
Exactly,
But yeah,
exactly.
just a quick word about the Christmas in a Glass. That's what we used to call this tour guide at Glengoyne. 43
Fabulous.
ABV. So smooth, rich, and wonderful.
Gorgeous dram. Gorgeous.
Epitome of sherry matured whiskey. Wonderful.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Gordon, we did in the last episode we did an Ask Dundask, which I was just trying to sort of shorten down to Dundask, but,
Nice.
asking if there's any questions out there, and we did get
Are you
one.
saying we've got a question?
We've got a question from Steve.
Did you have to? How long did it take you to get through the sort of post bag to find that question?
That was quite. I actually fell into the post bag. I was getting back out the post bag. There was nothing on there to stand on. No, the post bag was bulging this week. And Steve Laidlaw, he did like Stuart Henry's quote from the previous episodes, which was episode 6. He said, "Whiskey is showbiz for ugly people." He said that's the quote of 2021 so far. Anyway, that was Stuart Henry's. He said, "I would be interested to know the Dundas and Dallas views on when does a finished whiskey become a double maturation? Is there an agreed time period that above is classed?" So basically, it's a double maturation versus finishing. You know, and maybe explain double maturation.
Well, you see, that is quite interesting, because if I was to pick out this whiskey, let's pick this whiskey here, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to pick a Tamdhu 15 to explain a little bit. This is a 15-year-old whiskey, okay? So every single cask in here has been matured for at least 15 years. And we know that Tamdhu only uses 2 types of casks, a European oak Oloroso sherry cask or an American oak Oloroso sherry cask in the first fill or the refill. So in theory, this could be Tamdhu 15 double cask because you're using 2 types of casks. So, but that's fully matured. So it's 2 types of casks married together. A finish could be 7 years in a cask and could then be finished for 8 years in another cask. There is no time scale that relates to finishing. So finishing does not have to be shorter than the initial maturation, and it does not have to be. You can mature a whiskey for 3 years in a bourbon cask and for 53 years in a second cask. It might be 55 years old at the end of it, but it could still be a finish. So there is no defined length of time related to finishing.
And that would not be called a double maturation. That would just be called a finish.
A finish, yes. Yes. It could
Is there such a thing?
You don't have to call it a finish, but you would maybe want to say that it would be a finish. But, you know, to have a finish, I think to have a finish that's longer than the initial maturation seems a little weird. But double cask, I mean, I think Macallan brings out a 15-year-old double cask, which is matured in a very similar way to the Tamdhu 15-year-old. We just don't use the phrase double cask. We just mature. So a little bit of confusion there, perhaps. But normally finishing is a shorter period of time, but it doesn't have to be.
Got you. That's good. I hope that answers Steve's question. Just looking at the Facebook there, which is a great way to get in touch with us. Susan, who we've just mentioned about Inverurie, Susan Allen says she's looking forward to another episode. Peter, PT Pete is on again, talking about technology. Wonderful. And lots of 1 or 2 nice thumbs up and comments. So any questions to ask Gordon Dundask, or Dundask as we call it. And I have got one question to ask you, Gordon. Do you want to take part in this week's challenge?
I love a challenge.
Okay, here we go. This is in my spare time off between doing DIY on the Easter holiday. I knew you'd recorded the video about the first whiskey or the first drink that had never been drank by our esteemed guest earlier on. So I thought I would do that with you. I've got the answer. What's the question? And it's all about firsts. Brilliant. It's not just about whiskey. Okay, play at home. Here's the answer. The answer is 1903. it lasted just 12 seconds. Now, this is not your first date, Gordon. I'm not talking about it. But Orville and Wilbur booked their place in history. If that's the answer, what's the question? 1903, Orville and Wilbur booked their place in history for something that lasted 12 seconds. And if I said their second name was right.
Oh, was it the first flight?
That's the correct answer.
I was
what's
thinking
the question? The question is?
What did Orville and Wilbur do for 15 seconds?
Yes, I suppose, when was the first manned flight? 1903,
Right. ...
then some information.
All right, I thought it was going to be whiskey related.
No, firsts.
All right, okay.
Firsts.
Right, I
Sorry.
was thinking...
Right, okay.
Right,
okay.
Next one. Right.
Well, here's one with a barrel. But this is not a question. This is, I'll maybe get whiskey later, but this is firsts. And I didn't make this into a question, but Annie Edson Taylor on October 24th, 1901, was the first person to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel and survive. She was 63 on that very day. So I didn't use that one, but that's the idea, firsts. So I should have done that first. But anyway, you got the right, brothers. So here we go. Food. The answer is October the 8th, 1945. And the first food done this way was popcorn. That's the answer. What's the question? October the 8th, 45. The first food done this way was popcorn. What's the question? How do you make popcorn?
I don't ever make it. I buy it.
Oh, you don't buy it to put it in something?
You put it in a saucepan, don't you, and it pops.
Or?
Microwave.
So the question would be?
What was the first food to be microwaved?
Yes!
Right, I'm getting there.
Okay, I say it takes warm up, but listen, people watching or listening to this podcast, you will now know that 1945, popcorn was the first food to be microwaved. And that was Raytheon patented the cooker, and the engineer Percy Spencer was working with microwaves, and his chocolate bar melted in his pocket. And then he realised there was an application for microwaves.
Nice.
There we go.
Nice.
Gordon, it's not about whiskey, but we can try and squeeze it into something connected. Here we go. Here's the answer. Well, the company was Gillette, and the bout was between Joe Louis and Billy Conn on June the 19th, 1946. Well, that's the answer. What's the question? Play at home. The company was Gillette. Why are we talking about Gillette in the middle of a boxing fight? The company was Gillette, and the bout was between Joe Louis and Billy Conn on the 19th of June, 1946.
I have absolutely no idea. The first ever shave in a boxing match.
Nearly, Gordon. That was a close shave. It was the first corporate sponsorship on television. We do a lot of that. We've got a lot of marketing companies out there selling their wares all over sporting events and in Grand Nationals, which I'll have to mention the Scottish National later on. So, Gordon, I've got, I would say 2 to me, 2 to you, 1 to me. Here we go. This is really scraping the barrel. The answer, well, Gordon, it was hailed as the greatest necessity of the age, and it was initially named medical paper by its inventor, Joseph Gaiety, in 1857. Well, that's the answer. What's the question? What's
medical paper?
And can I just say, one of the reasons this came into my head was because at the beginning of the pandemic, there wasn't many of this left on the shelves of our supermarkets. It was called medical paper. What other paper
was the first toilet roll?
Yes, that's that. Who invented the toilet roll? 1857. Something you might never.
What did they do before that?
I think it was. I think it was the old hands.
All right. Oh, okay.
I know. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I was at university with a chap that was a farmer, and that's exactly what they did. Anyway,
I thought
yeah.
I thought you were right to say we're at university with a chap who uses his hand. Anyway.
He did as a farmer when he was, that was what
Oh,
they do
right,
out in the
right,
fields.
right,
If
yeah.
you're caught short. Here we go. 490 BC, Gordon. This is the finale. 490 BC. Here we go. The guy, his name is called Phidippides. Phidippides was a Greek messenger in 490 BC who ran from a famous battle 25 miles back to Athens.
My first ever marathon.
Is the correct answer! It was the Battle of Marathon he ran back from to tell the Greeks they had won. Gordon Dundas, you have won this week's challenge. On first.
I was confused by the fact I thought we were doing whiskey related ones, but no, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. That's fabulous.
Well, we'll get onto whiskey related again, but I just thought since we're doing the firsts and first whiskies and first, I thought we'll do that.
Very good. Next week it'll be more whiskey related. What is the answer? I've got the question. No, what is the question? I've got the answer.
That still confuses me a little bit, yes.
No,
and can I just say another bit of news we should have done at the beginning of the show was in Scotland we had the Scottish horse race, the Scottish Grand National.
Oh, yes, absolutely, and we did, and there was some winners in the Ian McLeod family, was there not?
There was. Ian McLeod owned by the Russell family, and Lucinda Russell, the sister of the owner, is a horse race trainer, and she had 2 horses in the race. And I put all my money onto the wrong one. So I came away with nothing. But congratulations to Peter Scudamore and Lucinda Russell.
Well done to them. Well done to them. Fabulous.
So
that's fabulous. That is utterly fabulous. So, look, Gordon, what an episode. I mean, that is a unique bit of news for us to share and things. And I'm very, very happy that we managed to do that. It's been great.
Great interview as well, Gordon. That was fantastic. And it's worth going to check out the original Whiskey Tribe video.
We will link it. We'll link it on the Facebook page. We'll probably somehow link it on the YouTube. We'll link it somehow, and you'll see it. But if you've not seen it, it is great to watch a 50-year-old gentleman who's never had a drink of any sort in his life have a fantastic whiskey as his first ever drink. It's really, really good.
And we take some notes for potential conversational topics next week, Gordon. Foods that you've never tasted. I've never skydived.
No.
So let's think about that for next week.
No, I've never been in a bar. Oh no, I have.
Yes.
It's just been such a long time.
You've never left a bar.
No, that's very true. That is very true. Fabulous, Gordon. Thank you for that.
Okay.
See you next week.
Cheers. Slàinte mhath, folks.
Slàinte mhath. Bye-bye.
Slàinte mhath.